Okay, so thank you everyone for being here today. We are going to get started. And so if you missed me mentioning, if you happen to have a piece of paper and a pen or some way to document, I do have some opportunities for reflection. And so please feel free to take advantage of those. And so welcome to How to Thrive Academically and Emotionally During Your School Year. And so my name is Jessica. I'm a social worker at Shift Collab. I support young adults with anxiety, life transitions, and relationship challenges as my primary focus, amongst other things. And so my intention this evening is to provide you with tools and resources to set yourself up for success this school year. And so when we talk about success and school, we think about multiple areas. And so that's why today we're going to focus on two core areas, starting with academics and then moving into some of the emotional pieces. And so, as I mentioned, we're going to start with learning strategies and tools. And then we're going to move into tools to calm your brain and body. And to finish it off, I'm going to ask you to think of some of your takeaways from today. And so throughout, please keep in mind what feels like it fits for you and what resonates with you. With that being said, when we attend presentations, oftentimes a lot of information is shared. And so please feel free to pay attention to what feels relevant for you and what resonates with you and take that. And if other pieces don't resonate with you or don't feel as relevant, that's okay. Pick and choose what feels like a fit for you. Okay. And so reviewing learning strategies and tools. And so this is our first opportunity to reflect. And so what I want us to take a moment to do is to ask yourself the following questions. What are your motivations and intentions for engaging in school? So why are you there? What are your hopes? And then thinking about how you can ground yourself in your motivations and intentions when challenges arise. So let's take a moment for that pair of questions. I also forgot to mention, as we're reflecting, please feel free at any point in time to unmute yourself and speak up, or if you have a question or something to contribute, please feel free to do that in the chat. I'm hoping today can be interactive, and as much as this is a learning opportunity for yourself, I also want to hear from you what you have to contribute and share with others as well, because as students and folks that work with students, you also have valuable things to share as well. And so the next set of questions, what has helped to set you up for success in previous school years? And so at this stage, some folks may be in their first year of post-secondary, maybe you're in your final year or completing a higher level. And so regardless of where you're at, you have been a student in some setting. And so I'm curious for you to reflect on what has helped you get through previous school years. And I also want you to reflect on the following question of what strengths of yours can you draw on to utilize this school year? I'll give everyone a minute or so to kind of reflect on that. Thank you, Stefania. And so Stefania said here, staying organized, planning, making time to set up a schedule, and doing my best to follow through with it. And so Thank you for sharing that. And I'm curious as well, like when we talk about making time to set up a schedule, I think it's even important to reflect on what type of schedule works best for you. Is it a visual schedule that you have on your wall? Is it in your phone? Seeing what's actually effective for you and what's meaningful for you is also important. And Denise here says, telling myself I just need to pass, I don't need an A. And so managing some expectations and not setting the bar too high. Yeah. We have another one here saying not getting overwhelmed during the year / burnout. Yeah. And I'd be curious if you've been successful in doing that in the past, what was helpful? And if this is a goal that's stemming from maybe like reflection on previous years, if they've been overwhelming or on that brink of burnout, I'm curious, what are some small changes that would be helpful for this school year? Yeah. Thanks everyone for the contribution to that. I appreciate it. And so moving into study tips. And so for folks, I have some links throughout this presentation. I do have a handout. I'm not actually sure if you can see it already in the chat. I posted it before folks came in. If you can scroll up to the top, and if someone can like give me a thumbs up or let me know. Thumbs down. Okay. So what I will do right now is pop that in there again. So that way people have access to what I've shared. And so just give me a moment here and I will try it again. Okay. Alrighty, it's not working at this very second. So what I will do is do it at the end. And so in terms of study tips, I'm not sure if folks are familiar with the Pomodoro method. And so that is when you work for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break, and repeat the cycle. And so the idea is that in terms of sustained attention, if we're being realistic and setting ourselves up for success, working in smaller chunks is more beneficial than trying to sit down for an hour and a half straight to sustain our attention. And so there's a website here that helps to support you in doing that timing. What I would want to note when we talk about taking a break when you're studying, it's important to consider what that break looks like. And so if you know that going on TikTok, for example, or social media, it tends to be a time suck. So you go on there and then half an hour has passed, 20 minutes has passed, then maybe going on social media during that 5-minute break is not the best break for you. And so it's important to check in with yourself and know what a helpful break looks like. And so that could be getting something nutritious to eat. That could be stretching. That could be dancing it out to a song. Some of these things that I'm mentioning are more on the physical side to get your body moving, your brain moving, so that you can come back feeling a little bit refreshed and ready to engage for that next 25-minute cycle. The next suggestion or tip is finding an accountability partner. And so this could look like a few different things. This may be if you have an assignment and you are trying to complete your outline by the end of the day. Maybe you are telling your roommate, a parent, a friend, a sibling, someone you see in class, and let them know of your intentions and ask them to follow up with you later. And you could even be their accountability partner and ask them if there's anything that they're trying to focus on and that you could both keep each other accountable for. Along those lines as well, I'm not sure if folks are familiar with the term body doubling, but this is something that's often talked about when we talk about ADHD. And so body doubling is a productivity strategy in which another person works alongside you as you complete a task. that you might otherwise find challenging. And so if you're having a hard time sitting down at your desk or a table to complete work, maybe there's someone that can also sit down with you and do some focused work at the same time to help with focus and motivation. So that's something definitely to consider if you are needing that extra bit of accountability or support in starting tasks, particularly. And also we want to consider what environment it is that you are studying in. And so if you are in a busy environment, that may be harder for you to study. Or vice versa, some people thrive in those busier environments, but it's important to consider what's helpful for you. The other piece that I will mention is we want to avoid studying in your bed. It may seem tempting, and sometimes it's very tempting, but realistically, we want to keep your bed for sleeping in order to not disrupt your sleep as well, because obviously sleep is very important for learning and studying and retention. Okay. I'm curious, when we talk about creating a environment conducive to learning and studying, I'm curious what other people do to set their environment up for success. If you want to pop it in the chat or unmute. Okay, so Elizabeth here saying there's a way I set up my kitchen table only for working. And so I think if I'm understanding you correctly, like if you are working, your table is going to look a certain way. And if you are using it for like pleasure, eating, enjoyment, your table is going to look different. That's interesting. Okay, so Elizabeth is saying it's just a shift of where the chair is, but it signals to me it's work time. Yeah, that's interesting. Stefania's here saying, I'm all about the vibe of my space, salt lamp, aromatherapy, study beads. Okay, so Stefania's taking in her different senses. So the look of it, the feel of it, yeah, how it's affecting your senses. For Denise, she needs quiet, the temperature of the room just right, and no distractions. Yeah, I think even too, like I have, I've got like fidgets, I don't know if you can see that, at my desk. And so that can help to sustain my attention as well. And I make sure there's usually something on my desk that I can kind of grab and play with that's tactile, because for me, that really helps to focus. And so that might be worth also reflecting on, just in terms of what does your environment look like? What's helpful? And also maybe what's not helpful for you. Another question is, how do you learn best? And so I think when I'm talking about learning, I'm talking more about that independent learning outside of class, when you're required to study, learn, retain information on your own. And so one of the suggestions here is quiz websites. So Quizlet is a website where you're able to make your own cue cards to test, which helps to retain information and also recall information, which is one of the best ways to make sure that you're learning and actually retaining it, is by trying to recall that information. Another one is rereading materials. For some people is really effective. We want to try and engage with the material when we're rereading it. Simply rereading the lines probably isn't going to be as effective for recall. And so one suggestion is trying to state things in your own words instead of memorizing definitions. Another is teaching to others. And so oftentimes, if you are able to articulate and formulate the subject in order to teach others, that's a great sign that you've been able to retain that information and that it's more knowledge as opposed to memorized information. And so when we say teaching to others, this could be, this could look different for everybody. So if you don't have anybody to teach, you can teach your dog, you could teach your cat, you could say it out loud as if you're teaching. Maybe this is something that you are able to do with peers. You can take turns teaching one another. It's also a great way to see if you have retained that information, if you're able to call a peer out on maybe something's different, or like that's a great way to see if you've retained it. Another great one is using YouTube videos. And so oftentimes with more concrete subjects. So like math, for example, if you're having a hard time trying to learn a topic and maybe your professor's taught it one way, I guarantee on YouTube, there's probably at least 3 different ways that someone's teaching it. And so finding ways to watch it, to learn it, can be really helpful. And the other piece, which sometimes we can struggle with, is spreading learning the content out over time. At times, it is necessary to cram, and I appreciate that, but we are fairly early on in the semester. And so the hope is that we can maybe create some more sustainable patterns at this point in time. And so when we spread content out over time, that again helps to retain the information and for it to become knowledge as opposed to memorizing it for a short period of time. So something to consider and reflect on again. How can you spread content out over time? When we're at the beginning of a new semester, we're kind of about 3 weeks in or so. What does that look like for you? Okay. And so next, we want to talk about using technology to your advantage. So when I say that because sometimes technology can be distracting, as I'm sure we've all experienced, but there are also some really great advantages. And so, for example, there are often different apps that you can download on your computer, on your phone, your tablet, whatever it is that you're using, called self-control timers. And what these do, the particular one that I'm thinking of and that I've used in the past, helps to block particular websites. And so if I find myself checking social media, maybe I'm on Amazon or shopping when I'm not supposed to be, I can put those specific websites down and set a timer for myself. And so typically I would set it for like an hour or whatever you feel is appropriate. And if you try to log on to those specific websites or access those specific apps, it's going to stop you. You're not going to be able to do that. And so that's an extra backup for when your internal self-control is being challenged, to have that extra piece of accountability as well. Oh. The other piece as well is the do not disturb setting. And so oftentimes, if we have our devices close to us, even if you're trying to focus, we may become distracted by different messages, emails, social media, texts, calls, all of the different ways that we can be distracted. And so again, to set ourselves up for success, it can be really helpful to turn off those notifications. With that being said as well, in terms of sleeping, turning off those notifications at night is incredibly important so that you are being able to rest throughout the night. And for those that are concerned for like safety or wanting to be able to be contacted, I believe on iPhone at least, I'm not sure about others, that if someone tries to call you 3 times in a row, it'll let it go through. So there is still a way to be in contact with folks if that's your concern. Another one, again, when it comes back to supporting your self-control, is setting devices outside of your workspace. And so if you are someone who ends up unconsciously picking up their cell phone or a different device when you're trying to work, put it out of arm's reach. If you are able to put it in a different room in your space, do that. If you are in a smaller space or a dorm room, for example, put it on Do Not Disturb and put it in a drawer. Put it somewhere that you would have to physically get up and get to, as opposed to being able to reach it immediately. And so again, setting yourself up for success when it comes time to getting that work done. The other one that I personally like is white noise. And so that can help to focus. That can also help to drown out any other background noise or unwanted noise. White noise can be helpful, or some folks will use like certain music or rain, water, waves, birds, whatever it is that floats your boat. But sometimes that can really help with our focus. So here are just a few suggestions. I'm thankful for my colleagues who supported me in finding some of these websites and have used them themselves, as I haven't personally used all of them. I've seen lots of good things about Notion. And so Notion supports with notes, documents, and tasks, and it's customizable. So you can create a home screen that is aesthetically pleasing and meets your personal needs. And so that is an app that you can download for free. Another app, a website, is called FocusMate, and this is a co-working app. And so this actually comes back to what we were talking about earlier about accountability. And so the way that this works is you register and you pick a time slot, and you then have an hour, and you are paired up with someone else who has also picked that same time slot. When you come into the video room, you then are able to share with your coworker about what your intention is for that hour. So setting out your intention, that accountability piece, and then you work quietly alongside one another for that hour and can come back at the end and say, yep, this is what I got done. This is something that you can access 3 free sessions a week. If you're really enjoying it, you can get a subscription. I believe it's $5 a month for unlimited. And so that's an interesting way to do the accountability piece, especially if you're not feeling like you have someone to do that with. And lastly, there's another app called Structured. It helps to split your day into small tasks to get a timeline of your day. This is a free app, and it is only compatible with Apple products. I'm curious from folks, because there's so many different websites and so many different apps out there. I'm curious, how do you personally use technology to your advantage? Yeah, Elizabeth is sharing. I'm a big fan of FocusMate. Um, I'm curious, Elizabeth, for those that may be unsure, based on getting matched up with essentially a stranger and working alongside one another, how did you manage that? Like, what does it feel like?
Hi, sorry, I was just cooking while my camera was off. So I felt safe using it. I can only speak for myself though. There's an option to I mute myself so that I can listen to music, but other folks I know will actually share their screens to keep themselves accountable to not, go on social media and stuff. I don't do that just because the work that I do is really private, but I felt very safe. And of course, if I wasn't comfortable, I could just leave, which is nice. But for sure, there's an element of risk in that, it is a stranger on the internet, but you can make a bio and of course, choose the person you're meeting with. Usually people will say I'm a thesis student and I'm doing this or that.
Yeah, thank you so much for shedding light on that, Elizabeth. That's really helpful, especially for those that are considering it but aren't quite sure. It's always nice to hear of those firsthand experiences. I'm curious, does anyone else have a go-to app or website that they find really helpful in supporting them? Or just generally a way that you use technology to your advantage? in terms of academics or focus or motivation? Okay. If anyone comes up with anything or something pops into your brain, please let me know. Yeah, putting your phone on airplane mode in the farthest room away was a lifesaver for me in school. Yes, I am one of those people who for sure unconsciously picks up my phone and then 10 minutes has passed. So I certainly try to put it out of sight, out of mind. And it also is interesting because I notice how many times I unconsciously go to reach for it, which was like an interesting kind of experiment as well. And so now we're going to move into part 2. So thriving emotionally during the school year. And so before we jump into some concrete strategies, I wanted to talk about the value of checking in with yourself. And so ideally, we want to be checking in with ourselves throughout the day. And so what I encourage folks to do is pick some natural times where you have a moment to pause and reflect. And one way to do this, I'm not sure if folks are familiar with a body scan, but essentially, there's many ways that you can do this. But essentially, a body scan is taking time to reflect and see how you are personally feeling in that moment and going from head to toe. And so, for example, you might identify like maybe you have a headache, maybe your throat is scratchy, maybe you're feeling hot. Noticing if there's any tension throughout your body. Are you holding tension in your jaw? Are you holding it in your neck, your shoulders? Have you been clenching your hands? Are you hungry? Really taking time to go from head to toe and checking in with your needs. And by doing this proactively, oftentimes people will say, like, I don't have time during the day. I'm really busy. And I appreciate that you are. But if we ignore our needs for the entire day, oftentimes that doesn't end up setting ourselves up for success later or the next day. And so if we can make it a priority to take a couple moments to check in with ourselves, that also gives us the opportunity to meet our needs. And sometimes our needs can be met fairly easily, like eating or drinking or resting or like spending time alone or unclenching your jaw. There are some things that you can do that would help to set you up for success. If people are interested in body scans, I would encourage like going on YouTube. There's many videos of all sorts of different lengths, but it helps to introduce those. And so with that being said, we're going to talk about ways to calm your brain and body. And what I'm going to encourage you to do when learning strategies, we want to practice them first when we are calm. And so finding a time during your day when you have a couple moments, maybe that's in the morning, in the afternoon, before bed. But our biggest mistake is when we learn new calming and coping strategies is trying to use them for the first time when we're already dysregulated. If we try to do that, we are not setting ourselves up for success. I can appreciate that nothing is more frustrating than trying to learn a new skill when we are not regulated. And so any of these, we're going to go through 3 different ones today. I want you to practice them at least like 4 different times. And then you can choose whether you feel like it's a fit for you or not. Some of these might feel like a fit, some of them might not, and that is okay. And that's why we give you multiple options, is so that you can see what feels like a fit for you. And so the first one that I really personally like is the 5 senses grounding. And so what this has you do is focus on 5 things that you can see. And so looking for things with patterns, details, textures, designs. For example, I can see like the grain in the wood on my desk. I can see the pattern in the leaves. My blinds are kind of crinkled. The next is touch. So again, touching things with patterns, details, designs. So for example, if I'm holding this pen here, I can feel that it's round, it's smooth, it's kind of warm because I've been holding it. And really taking a minute to feel each item. The next thing is 3 things that you can hear. And so being quiet and listening to your surroundings. Then it's 2 things that you can smell. And so if you don't have anything like in the air currently, you can literally hold something up. If you have something scented, you could smell your arm, you could smell your hair. It could literally be anything. And the last thing is one thing that you can taste. And so maybe you have something, a taste in your mouth currently. Maybe you have lip chap on. Maybe you have water, something that you can eat. It could be anything. And so the point of the 5 senses grounding is that it helps to bring us back to the present moment. Oftentimes, when we become overwhelmed or anxious, or even if we're experiencing anger, we are typically thinking about things that have happened in the past or may not happen in the future. And so it can be helpful to bring ourselves back to the present moment. Oftentimes we are safe, and reminding ourselves, I'm here, right now. I am safe. I'm going to ground myself in what's happening. Okay. I like this because it's portable. I like it. Yeah, the portable piece is incredibly helpful. It's also very subtle. So if you were to do this, if you are on public transit, if you were at school, people aren't going to typically notice that you're doing this. With that being said, if you need to, you can go through it multiple times. You can also pick elements that feel like a fit for you. So if you go through it a few times and the touch doesn't do anything for you, or the taste or whatever it is, you can skip those and pick what feels like a fit. Next, progressive muscle relaxation. And so this teaches you how to relax your muscles through a 2-step process. And so first, you systematically tense particular muscle groups in your body, such as your neck and shoulders, and then you release the tension and notice how your muscles feel when you relax them. And so I have this handout in the PDF that I'll post shortly. The handout walks you through from head to toe different muscle groups that you can practice tensing and relaxing, as well as it has 2 audio recordings. I like this because it helps to remind us that we have some control over our bodies. It also helps to reduce tension. And it's also been said to support with like sleep and relaxation as well. Again, this one's really portable, pretty subtle. You can do it out in public. And often people won't be privy to you tensing and relaxing your muscles. And then lastly, the last strategy we'll talk about here is box breathing. And so again, really important to practice when we are calm so that we can get used to what that feels like. And so inhale for 5 seconds, hold for 5 seconds, exhale for 5 seconds, hold for 5 seconds. And we can repeat that multiple times as needed. Again, I have a YouTube link in that PDF that I'll send out if people want to have a guided box breathing to follow along with. And I think it's worth noting, in terms of the strategies that we have talked about today, it will be helpful to try to notice your feelings at the onset of your feelings, as opposed to letting them get to like a 10 out of 10 and trying these strategies. So ideally, as you become more aware of those physical cues that you're becoming dysregulated, you can use these early on to be proactive in managing those emotions and feelings. And so what's available to you for support? And so at post-secondary locations, most, if not all, should have accessibility services. And so if you are needing extra support, you can access accessibility services. Many might have support with academics. They might be able to support with accommodations. And typically accessibility services is also linked with counseling. And so if you're needing further support, please feel free to reach out to your school. And also what services are offered on campus. And so what does your campus do to help support your mental health as well as your academics? I've heard of some campuses that do have accountability groups at school that are school run or peer run. There are folks who can help you with your citations. Oftentimes schools will run different webinars or workshops about mental health and different school related tasks. And so I encourage you to take advantage of those and see what's offered. Outside of school, in terms of crisis, if you are in need to talk to someone, please feel free to use, there are many different crisis lines. I've included one. Again, it will be included on the PDF, as well as suicide safety planning. There's a great app by the Center for Addictions and Mental Health. And then lastly, outside of school, Shift is a great option in terms of counseling. There are many therapists who are able to support school-related and unschool-related mental health challenges. And so this brings me to pretty much my last slide. What I would like you to do is reflect on our conversation today and pick 1 to 3 things that were really relevant for you and that you are taking away from our conversation today. And so while you reflect, I am going to post that link in the chat. Okay, so it should be in there. Everyone should be able to click on it and download it. If someone wants to give that a try and let me know. Okay, Stefania says yes. Great. And so as folks are taking that moment to reflect, to maybe write down their takeaways from today, does anyone have any particular questions or thoughts, or even wanted to share their takeaway from today? Okay, so Denise is taking away the apps. Those felt helpful and relevant. Any questions or any thoughts? Okay, well, I just want to take a moment. Oh, we have one more comment here. Taking away the reminder that being a student is really tough. Shout out to students. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that, Elizabeth. I think you are right. Being a student is really tough, and managing, there's a lot of things happening when you're a student. And I think we really only briefly touched on a few things today because academics could be a whole series and mental health could be a whole series. But yeah, there's a lot going on. So reach out for support if you need it, whether that be through a peer, whether that be through an organization, reach out. Okay. Will we have access to the recording of this session? Unfortunately, I do not believe that you have access to the recording of this session. I've included the links, like any of the links that would have been in the presentation, if you're able to download that. Yeah. And so thank you everyone so much for attending today. I do really appreciate you taking your time and participating and being here with me. And I wish everyone all the very best. Aisha, was there a particular reason that you were hoping for the recording? I'm just going to wait on here one more minute before closing our presentation today, okay? If you did have another question or anything, please feel free to pop it in the chat or unmute yourself. Okay.